Falling Walls Circle, Challenges and Foresight. Welcome to the Falling Walls Plenary Table. Energy Transition in Europe, Squaring the Circle.
Yes, hello, and with this enigmatic headline, we're going to get started. Anybody who was here yesterday will have heard Mr. Rockström's presentation saying that the two major levers that we can use as humanity to actually get things done are the food systems and the energy systems. So we're sort of honing in onto the energy system. We all know it's not just 5 to 12, but we all got to get our moves on. But as the Germans are saying, the problem is in the minuscule changes that are necessary to be done. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, apart from me, there are a hell of a lot of male faces, and it is not for want of trying that I shouldn't have been here alone, whilst I feel very happy, of course, with each and everybody here. We had asked Laura Kotze of the IEA to participate. She wanted to, but then, alas, next week, the big report is coming out, and her boss said, no, you can't go to Berlin. However, having come to Berlin, we have a fantastic panel. So we have Niels Röcke opposite me. He's Executive Vice President Sustainability of Syntev, and he's got many more other hats, so he'll be talking to that. On my left is Peter Körte. He is CTO and CSO of the Siemens AG. I suppose you have been here a bit longer, but otherwise, normally you're in Munich,
yes.
But congratulations on your deal yesterday. Not too sure whether you personally were involved, but certainly your company was involved. So sounds like a good way in the direction of transportation. Martin Keller is with us, and he has just changed hats. It's just like in Hogwarts. But right at the moment, we're going to sort of use you in the way that your old job has described, that you were former director of the NREL, the National Renewable Energy Lab in the US, and so you're going to have your US, not the German hat on. I'm sorry to the person who is doing the sound. I'm too excited right at the moment. Mr. Jung, it is just so sad, not so sad, so fantastic, because, you know, I'm too excited. So, no, because it's, whenever there's a Secretary of State involved, is he coming, is he not coming? Yes, he is. So he's here. Rolf-Dieter Jung, he is Secretary in the Ministry for Research, Technology and Space. And okay, I wish I could talk to you about that, but that might be a different round. Last but not least, hello to our host, Peter Janssens, Board of Directors of Forschungszentrum Jülich. Now, you all know energy important, big lever, but we have this funny title, Squaring the Circle. Now, when you look it up, ChatGPT will without doubt say it's a metaphysical concept. Peter, not in your mind.
No, it isn't. Thank you, Connie. Good morning, everyone. So Squaring the Circle is about the energy transition and getting that done by the middle of this century. Dealing with sometimes conflicting boundary conditions, think economy, climate, social, security. Also dealing with a moving target, where AI and big data will be consuming more and more power. Also dealing with an uneven playing field, because it seems that if you look at the value put on climate and clean air, that is less so in China and even less in the United States. And then not to mention the geopolitical shifts and violent conflicts. Jülich Research Center, we have many passionate scientists and experts working basically day and night to develop materials, technologies, to demonstrate them and de-risk them in real world conditions. But we also do energy scenarios and look at grids, and we know that for the German energy transition to be beneficial, that can only happen when at the European scale the energy transition is successful. And I'd like to end my short introduction by referring to the President of the European Union, Mrs. von der Leyen, who recently spoke at the occasion of the 1 year into the Draghi report, and she was confident that we can do this. Well, she called for action, and she emphasized 3 things, namely we need to close the innovation gap, partly on information technology, partly on clean technology. We also need to have a joint plan for decarbonization, and that while maintaining our competitiveness. And also she emphasized energy independence, which means not only less fossil fuels, but also critical materials and homegrown technologies. And with that, I would like to give it back to you.
Thank you so much. Now we're talking about framing of the whole issue. And yesterday, I think we also were reminded that we might need new narratives. But we also have scientists here, and therefore we don't need narratives. We need studies. You have actually come out, you and your organization have come out with 10 different points. And I'm not going to ask you to reiterate 10 points. But could you just give us the highlights that is important for our discussion today, Peter? Mr. Roker.
So thank you. So in that context, I'm speaking on behalf of the European Energy Research Alliance, which encompasses about 50,000 people working in energy in Europe. So we're trying to break the silos. And those 10 recommendations, as you refer to, this report was actually written before we had a change in administration in the US. Mm-hmm. And as Peter said, we also seen that the level playing field has never been as tilted as it is now, and written in a time when we looked very much to the IRA and the support mechanisms, and you see that European and Norwegian, so to speak, companies move to the US. That is not the case anymore. So if we look to the 10 recommendations, I would say that it's a bit strange when we see the Draghi report talking about competitiveness. We've got the Letta report about more than a market, which also have a strong message on research and education as the fifth freedom. And the Heiter report, which is now the background for the new framework program, is focusing so much on research and innovation as the driver, as the center of our economy. And in that context, our recommendations and the thing of gap is why aren't we spending more on this? I mean, everybody's been called for a doubling and more than that at the European level. We see now the Commission proposal, which is almost a doubling, maybe 1.8 or something. But we also know that this has to go through the trialogue, agreeing on this, But we must be sure that if we back out of this progress in renewable energies, this void will be filled immediately by our competitors. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure we'll come into hydrogen later on,
Yeah.
But I mean, we do have Asian countries which are ready to take this void immediately.
Absolutely, as has been done in other technologies, not least, but in solar. Some innovations made in Australia and in Europe being spent.
So don't be shy.
Let's say we can actually sort of say with relief, yes, one thing is we have made it. Renewable energies have come to the fore. They're more than 50% of the energy sources. However, energy demand has risen. Now everybody, and of course right at the moment I'm looking at Martin Keller, now everybody said, oh God, when is the Trump effect going to hit the US? Because right at the moment, when you look at the picture of last year, renewable energies have been growing. So can we all relax and say, yeah, fine?
Well, that's a good question. So, and I think it's a little bit complicated because I think when you look at the energy system within the United States, I mean, of course, there is the federal side. And this is, I think, one worry is what I'm seeing now, of course, not being in the US anymore, but I think there is a massive cut in research support. for some of these innovations from solar to wind to hydrogen to battery. But then, of course, there's also the state side. And of course, that's why companies like Siemens and others come into a big play. So there is still a lot of really interesting projects going forward, which will run out of the state level. I think they might go forward, but the problem is right now that the current Trump administration also tries to intervene with this. Good example is on the offshore wind project, which they pretty much were done and only had to connect a cable more or less, and now it was cut. So this, in my view, will create a big issue in the United States. We see the first time for many years that electricity predictions, we will need more electricity because mostly driven by AI. I personally don't know how the US will close this gap. I mean, to just say, well, we go to gas turbines, well, you know this better than I do, but there's a lag time of at least 5 years right now to order turbines. So they cannot create this huge demand. And then when you then do this and cut a lot of the projects like they do with the big solar project in the desert in Nevada, they cut the wind project, I think there will be a gap, which then will potentially create increase in rates, which right now the fears that the administration will say that this is based on renewables. And that's what the concern is.
So without ongoing research and development, the future isn't going to go exponentially, but it's going to go linear, and it's not going to help that much.
So look, I think it's there. We need both. Look, I think we have technology where we would need to deploy this technology, and we need innovation to close some of this gap.
Yeah.
And if both of them falling apart, then we have a problem.
Thank you. Peter, the most important part is there a business case? I mean,
That's right.
a big company like Siemens needs to have a business case. You can't just do things because they're nice or because some scientists say X, Y, and Z, and if we don't all do it. So where does Siemens see the business case, and where do you drive forward, knowing that there is a business case, question mark, and also that scientists are right that if you want to do business with other businesses in 30 years' time, you might want to play your part.
Yeah, perfect. And you said it well. It's about it's also longer-term thinking, because obviously R&D, these are meant for multi-decades, so to speak. And so this is a concept we look at called the mega trends, where we know there's so fundamental trends that they are here to stay for the next 10, 20, 30 years, and they're going to affect the society at large pretty much everywhere. One that is there undoubtedly is obviously climate change, and with climate change is the electrification conversation. And Peter mentioned this in the very same speech. Ursula von der Leyen also stressed that the future will be electric. And we believe certainly from that perspective that we will see a doubling of electricity in the years to come. Of course, then the question is which year exactly, so that we can play a little around it. But undoubtedly, there is a race for electricity and for energy. And that makes for a wonderful business case in the sense that the need is there. Now, it's coming differently than we had thought it would be. Because we thought, in particular here in Europe and Germany, we have the debate about EVs and electric vehicles, and we've put a lot of money into e-car infrastructure, about chargers and so on. Unfortunately, this is now, turns out, is a very complicated business because it's not growing as quickly as it is. Now, that door might not be closing, but it's not going as well as. However, now another one is coming up, and that's called data centers. And the data centers are really booming and running. And so everybody's running in this direction, and now we have to find a way how to electrify it, no matter what. The key message here is we will have to have very good, stable electrical systems, grids, networks, generation, everything that comes with it in order to make it work. And that is a very, very big challenge where technology can help to make it more efficient, and where data also comes into it, because we have the big issue in terms of zoning laws and getting permitting or permits, and where we think we can actually, if we digitalize grids, we actually can increase capacity by 30% without building new grids. And that has to do with putting sensors into it, getting more capacity and efficiency out of the existing infrastructure that we all need. So as you can tell, I could go on and on, but it's a wonderful place, very, very dynamic. And last point, the US has understood this is a big race. It's not a big race just for AI, but there's a huge debate now. It's a race for energy. And the US realizes is that actually, if you compare it to China has built so much more infrastructure, and there's so much more ahead. People now talk about energy stacks. So the energy stack, not technology stack, but energy stack all the way from generation, distribution, storage, and then application, is they're leading. And now, of course, the debate will be, how will the US catch up? But I think for us, as we sit here around in Europe, what does it mean and what we're going to do?
Perfect. Thank you very much. And of course, as businesses, whilst you make your own plans, you're looking at what the political framework is. And Mr. Jung, Rolf-Dieter, you've been in charge now for the last half year, round about it. There are many requirements. The need is clear. I don't think anybody here disagrees. The question is how to react. If you were sort of to take us along the main thinking of how you say we as Germany, but also being part and parcel of this union, this European Union, without which globally we wouldn't be as important. Where are the mainstays, where are the main points that you can support everybody at this table?
I think the message is clear. Our, as we call it in Germany and in German, our Energiewende will only succeed if Europe succeeds as one connected, optimized energy system. And within such a system, we can harness the unique strengths of each member state. Offshore wind in the north, solar energy in the south, Austria's pumped storage power, Germany's salt caverns, for hydrogen storage. I think planned together and operated as single market, it becomes resilient by design, and that's important. But change needs investment, and investment needs planning certainty. That's essential. Investors, utilities, the hydrogen community need to be able to trust that political and regulatory decisions will endure. And my main point in Germany's new high-tech agenda, research and innovation policy are geared towards value creation, towards competitiveness, and towards technological sovereignty. That's maybe the most important task. At the project level, our funded portfolio aims at de-risking, eliminating the bottlenecks Europe faces, hydrogen production, transport system integration, sustainable fuels, sector coupling, and clean mobility. Across our programs, many projects unite academia and industry, and bridging by that precisely the innovation gap. Challenges remain, but they come with opportunity. If we can produce, store, and transport clean molecules and electrons cost effectively, decarbonization will strengthen our competitiveness and reduce dependence on critical inputs.
Thank you very much. And just to explain, we intentionally let you react after we've talked to everybody else, so not that we've put you at the back. But let's continue and let's share what we want to do. I have a couple of critical statements that I want not each and every one to react to. Then, ladies and gentlemen, it's up to you. But I want to keep a little bit longer for the future towards the end of our discussion. So maybe this, Peter, could start off with looking at the research that is being done in Germany and as your advisory role. Can you actually get traction? And these are not the nasty questions yet. How do you get traction? You look left, right, and center, and do you also sort of price China in?
We can get traction. I'm quite pleased, let's say, with the willingness to collaborate between, say, the public research organizations, the ministries, and industry, and we in fact do. But Energiewende braucht Kulturwende. So energy transition needs that, and we absolutely need to be more results-oriented, faster, to get things done and implemented, because speed is the name of the game here.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And again, you know, looking at our ultimate goal or the big frame, we want to all survive, or we want that our grandchildren can survive. Now, let's kick off with the, actually, the last time I had hydrogen before this sort of present discussion was with hydrogen cars developed in Munich.
Yeah.
Well, that dates me and dates the concept. Then we had this big hype. Whoa, hydrogen is it? It's the solution, it's the future. And now it sort of seems, yeah, sort of the air's gone out a bit, has it?
It has, certainly, but as with every hype, that is the case. And so, as we always would say, there's a trough of disillusionment. This is probably where we are now, but it's for sure here to stay. Now, not just maybe in those inflated numbers as we had anticipated. And in the end, it always comes down to, does it make sense? Mm-hmm. And it has a lot to do with numbers and if you can actually get the economics right. And to use hydrogen for, let's say, securing our electricity generation does not make a lot of sense to me. And even if you come from a physics side, if you just calculated the efficiencies are so low, it does not make any sense. However, we need to have solutions for fertilizers as feedstock. We need to have it for green steel. We need to have it for heavy haul transportation, where today there's not a good solution in that regard. And I think these are areas where hydrogen can play a major role. So usually, this is always what happens. Everybody says hydrogen is the solution to everything. Now we say, actually, it's dead, but it's not dead. I think it's here to stay. It's a very important molecule, but it will find its applications in areas that are the most obvious ones, and that is in feedstock and transportation, we believe.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I thought I was going to disagree with you from your opening statement, on hydrogen. But as you went on, I agree fully. I mean, we need to electrify what we can, but there are sectors which we cannot electrify. And just looking at the final energy use, let's say in 2050, is hydrogen going to be 3%? Is it going to be 5%? Well, it's going to be significant. And at present, we are at 100 million tons of hydrogen being produced. Only 1% of that is produced as low carbon, which is from green and then from blue hydrogen. And those 100 million tons, they emit 1 gigaton of CO2, as it's mainly produced from natural gas and coal. So there's a huge task here to decarbonize those industries, as you say, and how are we going to make steel in the future without having access to hydrogen? How are we going to make the aluminium and all the oxides we need to remove? So hydrogen, yes, there has been a kind of hype, but just look at the dot-com bubble. You don't look at it anymore because it's just a small ripple on the value of the dot-com companies, which has increased so enormously since this restructuring happening early to the late 1990s. So.
Very quickly, I'd like to hear Martin, and if you need to answer, then yes, but otherwise...
So I see this whole hydrogen discussion from a very different perspective, and I look at this from a research perspective. And this is the best example why we need innovation. Because when you look at back then, my old job, where we were fully integrated from producing hydrogen all the way to having the world record of filling heavy-duty trucks, and we do a lot of work on battery and storage. And this was exactly what happened there in transportation, where there was this kind of race on the innovation side. Is hydrogen or is battery coming through? And well, what happened was innovation in batteries outpassed hydrogen. So now, of course, the problem is from a research side, that's awesome. From a company's perspective, complicated, because what decisions do you make and what steel do you put in ground? But this shows you the innovation and the power of research and innovation. And so now the next discussion is, where will we go from there? Because do we need hydrogen for storage if we decrease large-scale storage with new technologies, with new battery systems for grid? So this is now the next race. Hydrogen will play an important role because sooner or later we need it for decarbonizing our jet fuel. So we need to go through hydrogen as a platform. So, but on many areas, it shows the power of innovation.
Jet fuel promise for 35, still a steep number to be hit. Peter, if you want one sentence, then yes.
The role of hydrogen will be important in the renewable economy because of its ability to transport and store renewable energy, and that is what is absolutely needed for. And then it's not just hydrogen, but it's also related molecules, and we need to drive the cost down, and that comes also with driving down the cost and implementing renewables.
Niels?
Yeah, just responding, to the AI and the need for more power to power data centers. And gas turbines. I mean, your order books are full for gas turbines these days. And what are they going to be fueled with in the future? Well, it has to be something which doesn't contain fossil carbon. So that's also the hydrogen and ammonia technologies having to be developed. So I think definitely there's a need.
Okay, let me come up with the second, and the word storage was actually a prompter. The second nasty sentence, CCS is a waste of capital. Just adapt to climate change. And I come from just a discussion on nature-based solutions, on the role of peatlands, and of course, by the way, forests. So, well, do we need it? Is there a future in it? What does science say? What do companies say? Any ideas or any statements?
In carbon capture, in particular, we find that it is most used in the United States, actually, where because of the fracking, you obviously have the natural tendency to say what comes out goes back in. It consumes a lot of energy yet again because you have to pump it down, and so therefore there is a case, I think, to be made, and it's much easier. We see it definitely picking up there. As with regards to Europe, of course, we had this huge discussion about this is going to be a big boom. We don't see this much. We see it. There's isolated cases, fine, but not on a broad scale.
Which means I need to turn to Martin, and the word fracking sort of, sends shivers down the spine of any green-hinted person.
So let me say on carbon capture and storage, there sometimes when we've worked with all the big, Exxon, Shell, Chevron, I think the criticism is sometimes you see here that this company is using carbon capture as an excuse to continue to burn fossil fuel. I see this also a little bit different. I think down the road, we very clearly need a method also to take CO2 out. Right now, it's too expensive. And this comes back to, again, what I said, why we need further innovation, because we have to significantly decrease the cost. Yeah. But we cannot just, right now, companies different from the research side. I think we need to drive this research and this innovation forward, because there is not too many technologies where you can take CO2 out. This could be one, but we need to significantly decrease costs. And that's why we need innovation to drive this forward.
From a Berlin perspective?
From a Berlin perspective and from a research perspective, I would advise to look at this issue from a different perspective, if I may. CO2 is one of the greenhouse gases that is driving climate change, that's for sure. But CO2 can also be a resource. Carbon compounds are fundamentally important for plastics, pharmaceuticals, fuels, and that's why we view specific carbon sources not merely as waste, but as valuable raw materials. And that's where we come in as ministry, funding projects, bringing this idea to life. If I may mention the project Carbon to Chem, which try to use waste gases to produce feedstocks for fuels, feedstocks you mentioned, Peter, for fuels and plastic. And this approach creates added value, reduces import dependency, and strengthens the circular carbon economy. Maybe that's a small part of this of the CCS discussion, but a not so unimportant one. And that's what I wanted to mention.
Thank you very much. From Niels, just a second, I come to you
Okay.
from my experience. The mattresses that can be infused with carbon. I mean, we can only get so many mattresses full of carbon. So, and they will have to be changed at one point as well. So, Niels.
Yeah, I'm coming from a country which excels, at least looks at itself, Norway, for CO2 storage. We've been doing this since 1996. And I think we really lost 20 years in Europe on CCS because we were talking about it and not doing it. Now there is targets on 50 million tons in 2030 to be stored stored storage capacity, and up to 400 or something in 2050, which then brings also the statement here on the reuse of carbon into the picture, as we cannot continue to use fossil carbon and just emit it. It's about reusing it. And that's where carbon and capture and storage come into the play in the future, because you cannot put anything into the wall on glue if it doesn't contain carbon, so you need carbon. And also the removal, as was mentioned here from Martin. We have surpassed the 1.5 degree, so we need to take carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and reduce the storage in the atmosphere. And I don't know about any other technologies which can do that at scale and with a predictable cost.
I still have 2 more points before we get the audience involved, so audience get ready, but please keep the answers a bit shorter. However, the next question is a bit more complicated. I do appreciate that. We're looking around. We're looking at China, who's going to put up one of the biggest solar power station in the world, in a desert, in the same state where they produce a hell of a lot of coal. We are looking at the US and have this question mark. So we are in a shifting international, and we all know very much shifting in the last 5 years, international climate. So the unanimity that we've had in 2015, we all need to chip in and do something, has left. So Europe has to find its energy drive. How do we do that best? Is that possible?
There's no alternative to it. It's the first statement. And the second one is Europe has to do it together. And we talked about the grids. And Mr. Jung spoke about it. This is exactly the way we have to do it. But we have to bring all the actors together, and we have to do it fast, because China is moving at an unprecedented speed. We have a lot of things now that are actually tripling down as the ripple effects with regards to the industries that are energy intensive, such as, I'm just talking about chemical industries and so on, but also about data centers and so on. They need energy, and they need affordable cost that's cost competitive around the world, that is predictable. This is exactly the point. And if we are not able to do this, this is not just about creating energy, but this is actually creating prosperity and growth for Europe.
Perfect. Any other takers?
Yeah. So
Martin.
look, I see this. I'm very optimistic, to be honest, what happened in Europe. So go back. I mean, was Germany not setting the trend on some of the major, starting on the PV side? Of course, when they all moved to China on the manufacturing side, that's a different story we have to address. But look, Germany was setting a lot of kind of the big boundaries in moving this forward. So what I see when I look into the research, I mean, we had this meeting at Jülich, and I see what Forschungszentrum Jülich does on PV research, what ESA does there from Fraunhofer, what we're seeing on other. So I think we have further innovation, and this is moving forward. Now the key will be and that's the other part now, to be honest with you, how do you balance this with energy cost? Mm-hmm. Because at the end, we need to see to push this forward without pushing our, let's say, chemical industry out of our country. And this now will be the big innovation. How do you link this? How do you find the kind of decarbonization on the energy cost, on the increase in electricity? And cost, we cannot leave this out.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Peter, and then I'd like to come with the last nasty point.
We yesterday had a debate here on planetary boundaries and tipping points, and not to be crossed. But when you look at the energy transition, we have passed 3 tipping points for the better. We have the technologies. The cost of renewables are far better than for coal, gas, and certainly for nuclear. And we know what to do, so we have a plan. So it can be done.
Niels, 1 sentence.
Yeah, if you had Rockström here yesterday, I'm sure he touched into what are the costs really. Mm-hmm. I mean, we tend to look at the bill, the electricity bill, but what are the costs to the society, the cost of carbon? And the most recent results there and numbers, they are just staggering. So those are the costs which are democratized, and we should not think about all these increases you see separately, as the only thing happening. Actually, we are reducing some of the risk of huge costs.
I'm with you, but that would actually open up a very different discussion here, because then we would talk about the social aspects of transition, and we all have to think about that. But right at the moment, we have sort of a plan for this one. But thank you very much for mentioning it. And I think even the Stern report 12 years ago already pointed to the fact, you know, where do you want to pay? At what point do you want to pay? But let's talk about something that in the German context is maybe a little bit added with 3 question marks, and that's fusion energy. Do we have a plan?
We have a plan, and that's for sure. If we talk about fusion, there is this super old joke about the so-called fusion constant. It always takes you 30 or 50 years to develop a power plant, no matter at which point of time you are. And that's been, I'm convinced, that's been the past, and the present and the future is different. The progress science has made the last couple of decades has been tremendous. That's the one difference between the past and now and the future. And the other difference is that the private investment increases dramatically into this technology, and we have reached a number of $10 billion at the very moment. We see this in Germany. We have 4 very keen and at the current situation very well-financed startups, 2 in the laser and 2 in the magnetic sector. I think the story of these constant is no longer true. And we are not talking about 50 or 30 years. The scientists are talking about, let's say, 20. The private sector is even more ambitious. But if you take 20, and I've not been very good at maths in school, but if I calculate correctly, 25 plus 20 is 2045, and it's maybe a very familiar number with regard to energy and CO2, and that's where we are heading. And the German government accepted a plan in October, that's called Germany on the Way to a Fusion Power Plant, and that's what we are doing at the very moment.
Thank you very much for that clear statement. Peter, any framing to be done maybe from the scientific side?
Of course, agreed to the State Secretary, who was also providing our base funding kindly. And I do believe that fusion is a promise for the future, a relatively clean technology, a relatively safe technology, which where Germany is very well positioned. But if we don't want that fusion constant to be true, then we have to do things different. That means a clear goal, it means a clear plan, it needs a view on how to embed it in the system, including what to do with the specific waste, and we need industry involvement. We have brave startups in fusion here at the moment, but they will not be able to carry the load alone. We need companies like maybe Siemens and others to build a consortium that can make it happen.
One sentence or no?
I can have a sentence. Look, this is another example where I think it's amazing what happened over the last couple of years. I mean, when I think Kim, the lab director of Livermore, she's also here at the meeting. So this is amazing what happened, and we need to continue to drive this. I'm still skeptical if the startups will, because I've heard things like they have this online by the end of the 2030s. I hope they're right. I hope they're really right. We need to continue the innovation. But the problem is we cannot just rely on fusion. We need to continue to drive all innovation.
Thank you very much for that statement. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I've made a promise. I try to keep it. So we can have 2 quick questions. I don't see anybody there, but I see 2 people there. That's absolutely a fantastic number. The lady and then the gentleman. Sorry. You need to grab them in the break, please. Madam.
So Yeah, sorry.
Just your name and then start
Yeah,
your...
Maya Seidel. Thanks so much for the discussion. I agree with lots of your points. And especially with speed is the name of the game and that it needs to be a business case. So my question is, why not set also our targets for renewable natural gas? There are brave startups that have really innovative solutions in that case for efficient methanation technologies that could solve the problems that we raised for transportation and storage. And also all the industries, the heavy industries don't need to change their processes and invest yet another billions into new processes. Ships, the heavy haul transport that you mentioned, they can blend in and already use that. So yes.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that question. And the gentleman also getting up, giving us his name, Frank Meyer. I can shorten
Good morning,
the
Frank
process.
Meyer. I'm working for Henkel. We are trying to defossilize products like Persil and Perwoll. Very much interested in the carbon to chem project. Question: what is the major accelerator? How can we make these materials faster available to the market so we can use them?
Thank you very much for your two very specific questions. Now, Maria's question about renewable gas. Who will take Martin?
I give you example. We had there's a startup company actually here. You might be at another one, but I know from my history there is called Electroarchaea. So they're working on CO2 and hydrogen to make decarbonized natural gas. We at Enroll, we had a pilot with them at Enroll. So now they're funded by SoCalGas, also in California. Look, there is a lot, and this comes back, Mr. Jung, to your idea, because it's used as CO2, and then of course you need hydrogen, and the point source, and you're going towards decarbonized methane, which then could be used in your turbines.
Yes.
There's a lot of startups and innovation, and yes, we absolutely have to do this. I fully agree.
Perfect. I see Niels wants to chip in.
Yeah, I mean, I fully agree. So if you really want the short answer, it's needed, but it's not the only thing, of course. I mean, it's among the portfolio of solutions we need for transport and for power generation and for decarbonizing materials. Yeah.
Perfect. I think you should approach these two gentlemen in the follow-up. Peter, one sentence.
Yeah, we
maybe?
talk about energy, but food and feed are also very important. And when you think about things like biogas, it is very useful to make a biorefinery business case come true. I don't think it can compete with other sources of
Perfect.
energy.
Anybody wanting to take the carbon to chem? You've already sort of laid down the
Yes.
ground, so the federal level is behind it. Anybody else wanting to chip in on that? Martin, thank you.
You're absolutely correct. The problem is that a lot of the carbon to chem, so it depends the market size. In compared to what we potentially have to deal with on CO2, it's small. That's why I think we need to see how can we drive this forward, but then also how do we look at utilization of CO2 as a whole. And to be honest with you, my sense is, and always comes back to money. So we have to show that the process we're using is at least not much more expensive. Let's say we would have a carbon tax down the road, which could be added on there. But this will be, the driver is to use new catalysts, new technologies to further decrease the cost that is be cost competitive. Because I don't know if some people might pay a premium for a decarbonized whatever it is, but only to a degree. That's why I think it's always cost, which we have to decrease through innovation.
Thank you, and that's also socially acceptable.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the end. Now, looking at the time, if we could go under 1 minute, I'd be very highly appreciative. But we're coming to the last question, and the last question at the Falling Walls Conference always starts that you are going to push down one more wall. I'm quite sure that there are quite a number. But which wall would you push down in the next couple of years, i.e. your vision? And maybe you'd like to start.
Yes, I would like to push down the wall, which is defined by the questions you asked. You did this in a very charming manner, Connie. That's for sure. But we are dealing for decades now with these critical questions: why hydrogen? Mm-hmm. Is it over? What do you want with CCS, and so on and so on. And we are losing, I think Niels stated this, we are losing time, and we can't afford to lose time anymore. So I think the power we have, that's an interesting the power, the great power we have is research, is science and research. The greatest power we, at least in Europe, have. We make the most out. We have to make the most out of this power, and rely on this power, and should leave these nasty questions behind. That's for me the most important thing to make progress.
I think you can't change a clown's outfit, and you can't change a journalist for asking these questions, but I can see that you get them put to you all the time, and that you rather use the time for actually getting the problem solved. I think I read up on you that you're very pragmatic in your approach, so thank you very much for sharing that. We wish you a lot of energy in your post. So I need to, Martin, you have two hats now. Please also take the second hat
so
of
now
the
I have to
incoming.
take the Helmholtz hat. So
Yes,
now,
yeah.
and that's very simple, and it goes a little bit what I think, what I'm seeing coming from the outside into Germany. The time is right now. I completely agree to this urgency. We cannot lose any time. How do we do this? We have to make science more effective, and this is where we have to take bureaucracy out. Let our scientists be able to do the science without encumber them in all this kind of bureaucracy we have around it. That's my role.
That could have been the last words, but it isn't. We have 2 minutes left, so you have to be definitely under 1 minute, Niels.
Yeah, I thought it was my wall, actually, the need to have pace and to cut red tape. And I think looking at the competitiveness around the world, and China as the undisputed leader now in renewable technologies, I think really Europe has to stay ahead of the curve, to be better all the time, to have a lower footprint on what we make, that we do this with the materials which are alternative materials which we can source ourselves, and to really to speed up. I think there's a great possibility for Europe in this, and not just to say that everything will be from Asia. So great possibilities.
Siemens, world player, yet German-born. Where is the future? Which walls will you push down?
The wall I would be pushing down is by bringing research and innovation much closer together. In the end, it's invention times commercialization that really makes a great innovation prosper. We don't have an invention problem. We really don't. But we have a commercialization problem that is really to scale it up. And this is where research and industry, they have to come together. This is why I sit here, and this is why it's great to be here today in Berlin.
Thank you for being part of the conversation. Last but not least, Peter.
I can only add to what was said and thank the other guests at the table for that. The thing which we haven't mentioned yet is carbon border adjustment. We need to do that to protect our industry, and we need to do that to create a level playing field. And yesterday's Nobel laureate, Professor Schmidt, had a good view on how to go about that. And for the rest, I think cultural change, bureaucracy, reward success, go for speed, and accept some risk-taking, and things going wrong then occasionally.
Thank you so much. I can't believe it. It's 9 seconds to go, so that gives me time to wish all of you a lot of energy to keep working at the issue from the positions, the new positions that you're working at, and keep on rising. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.